Right, hello my lovely YouTubers. Oh, I've had a great bike for you today. Do you know, I've been really looking forward to taking this out. And before I do anything, a big thanks to Superbike Factory at Crawley for letting me borrow this bike. The details of this bike will be online, but under the description, but I dare say it'll be gone by then. But anyway, what are we riding? Well, it's one of those sort of rarities really that I think a lot of people don't even know they exist. So it's the Royal Enfield Classic 500. Not the 350, but the 500. And this bike sort of went out of production, well, certainly importing into the UK because it couldn't meet Euro 5 compliance. So there's not an awful lot of these about, but the people that have them love them. And there's just a few real great features on here, which just, you know, just bring it into that area where it is a true classic. It's not a retro classic, it's a true classic. You know, because this sort of bike can trace its lineage, you know, way back. And the joy of a bike like this is that it is vibey and, you know, it just thump its way along, but boy, what a great bike. What a great piece of kit. So, what I thought we'd do first is go and have a look at the bike and so you get an idea what the hell I'm actually talking about. And then we're going to do some riding and have a little chat about it, because getting on this bike for the first time, you know, I knew I'd love it. And I do. Spoiler alert, I love this bike. I think it's great. So come on, let's go and have a look. Let's do that now. Right, so here we are, the Royal Enfield Classic 500. And it's funny saying that, isn't it? Because do you think that's really what we always wanted was sort of a 500cc version of the Classic 350, which was so successful and still is? Because I think at the time, you know, people were still sort of asking, oh, we want the 650, we wanted the twin. But isn't the whole thing about these classics and the endearing nature of the 350, because it's a nice single cylinder engine? And I think that's why we like the BSA Gold Star, isn't it? Because it's a single cylinder 650. And I think having a single cylinder 500 filled that gap properly. But the problem with this bike is that obviously it couldn't comply with the Euro 5 restrictions we have on emissions. So we sort of lost out on this bike really in the end. But I think it's such a great, you know, a great classic style of bike. You know, when you've got the unit engine, it's that unit construction, it's got the gearbox and the crankcase is all the same and all the rest of it. And it's really harks back to that real glory times, isn't it, in classic motorcycles. But I think the key thing with these 500s is that people who've got them know, and I've said this before about other bikes, they know that it's a great bike because it still has that charm of a classic bike. It thumps along, bum 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 bum. It feels bigger. It feels bigger than a 350. It's got more, I suppose, more that sort of character that some people think is terrible, but it's still got that sort of that roughness to it a little bit. You know, it thumps along a lot more than the 350. There's more vibration for it through the mirrors, through the hands, but it's not unpleasant. It's sort of comforting. You know what's going on with the bike. It's doing what it's supposed to, and it's giving you all that feedback. And that's why I just love it. And I knew as soon as I got on this bike I was going to enjoy it. And I've been riding it around for a bit this morning, and it's blooming awesome. It really is. I think the 350 still has that slightly more refined thing about it. You know, with this engine, with that unit construction, it's more rigid, and I think that's probably why you get the extra vibration through it. And obviously, it's the biggest piston and all the rest of it. This still really feels like a bullet. That's the thing. It's not that far away from a bullet. This is very similar. But some of the key things on this bike is that you've got that those hydraulic lifters on the valves. I call them hydraulic lifters, hydraulic valves. So there's no adjustment required for those. As long as you keep on top of your servicing, make sure your servicing is up to date. Change your oil regularly. The beauty of these bikes is that they're so easy to look after. But when you compare this to the 350, when you look at how different the classic 650 was, where they took a platform and they had to try and make it look like the 350 sort of, and it never got anywhere near it, did it? Where this does, when you look at the frame and the rear and all the rest of it, it has that. Let's have a quick look at that. Where you've got the seat, and this part in particular, it fits correctly. It doesn't on the 650. This is the right gap, if you like, spacing on it. I'm not a huge fan of black bikes. I've said this before, but the colours I've seen this in, work really, really well. There's some really nice colour options, or there were, but it works. The dimensions work properly. The other great quirky feature of this is that you still got a kickstart. Wouldn't it be great if you had a kickstart on a 350? But you get it on here, and it means that, if your battery's flat, you can still start it. You can still give it a kick and it'll go. I think it was such a shame that this couldn't comply with the Euro emissions restrictions, because I still think it'd be popular now. And I think, I don't even think it needed refining. But you know what? Everything on here is so chunky, it'll just last forever. When I look at the rear pegs and stuff like that, they're huge rear pegs. The actual footrest itself is really nice and comfortable, really big. The actual seating position itself is really good, but it's so close to the 350, and that's the sad thing. I've always wondered if they ever thought about doing more to the 350 and boosting it up to 500. I don't know if it's as simple as putting a new head on it. I don't know. They probably can't do that, but I just think it would sell. I think it would outsell the 650. I think the 650 was trying to be too clever on a platform that it doesn't really suit. Whereas this, I just think it feels so solid. It feels so solid. And to ride it, the riding experience is just a joy, absolute joy. So what does the bike actually ride like? Well, exactly as I expected it to. It's not as refined, and that's a difficult word to use with Enfield bullets and 350s and 500s. Let's say it's not as smooth as the classic 350. The classic 350 just hit the nail on the head, didn't it, with its characterfulness. This is sort of like really plunging yourself even further into that world. And it's vibey. I can feel the vibes coming through the bars, coming through the pegs. It's not unpleasant. It's just telling you that it's there. But what it reminds me of, it takes me straight back to when me and Carol were in Goa, and it just feels like that. It's got that. It transports you somewhere. And I don't mean metaphorically. Well, maybe I don't mean metaphorically, not literally, because it will transport you wherever you want to go. But it gives you that feeling. And I say this before about bikes. A bike should make you feel something when you get on it. And whether that transports you to somewhere else, or, I don't know, like a scene in a film or something. And it just makes you feel that way. And that's what this does. It isn't refined at all. It is vibey. Suspension-wise, suspension's great. You know what it's like. I just come back from France, and the roads there are just like billiard ball smooth. And you come back to the UK, and you really value a bike that's got compliant suspension, because the roads are terrible. But it's got what you need, and the seat's nice and wide. The seating position is lovely. It's a nice wide saddle, so it supports all of your butt, which is really important. It's not a difficult bike to ride. As soon as I got on this, stuck it in gear, I knew where I was. Do you know what I mean? There was no issue about, what's the clutch going to be like, what the brake's going to be like. It was all familiar, all totally familiar. And that's the beauty of these Enfields. I just think there's nothing to scare you when you get on a bike like this. You ain't got to worry. You don't want to go, 100 miles an hour. You might get on an R1, you think, well, I've got to be doing, flat out and 60 in 3 seconds or 2 seconds. This is just a bike that I'm going to enjoy to ride. I'm going to go somewhere, I'm going to stop, I'm going to have a coffee, a bit of kick, and just enjoy the experience. And what it does when I get there, and these are so good. These are so good. But I suppose the big kicker is, what's that 500 engine like compared to the 350? Well, it's a completely different engine, as you know. This is a unit construction engine. The gearbox and the engine cases are all in one. So it makes it very rigid. And it may be why possibly that they vibrate a little bit more. But I can feel that extra power on this little twisty road here. Do you know what? I feel I've got power in reserve. It's got a lot of torque compared to the 350. I think the torque is actually double that, even though it's 150 cc's. I've got more torque in this engine, and that's really nice. So I know that if I go up big hills and stuff, I'm not going to be changing down like I do in the 350. Particularly, I've said this before about most Enfields. They don't feel any different if you load them up to the gunnels or it's just you on there. They always seem to pull the same. But this was just giving that little bit of extra when I'm going uphill. But chugging along at sort of 40, 50 miles an hour, that's what this bike does. It'll do that all day. It's like a sort of stationary engine, isn't it, on wheels? It just does it. But as I said earlier, spoiler alert, that I knew I'd like this when I got on it. And of all those bikes in the Superbike Factory, this is the one that I wanted to try. This is the one I wanted to get out on. And that's bizarre. Does that make me odd? But I just know it's going to be really great, because these are the bikes that appeal to me. It'd be lovely to take a Ducati out like I did the other week and all the rest of it, but well, I can't use it. I can't use all that round here. But this I can use all of the power all of the time, and all its sort of quirkiness. And that's what you want from something. Why buy something that you can't use? You can only use a quarter of it. I want to use all of it. I said this about the Interceptor when I had that 650 engine in the Interceptor. I could use all of the power all of the time, and that's the thing. I'm getting value for money, aren't I? And talking of value for money, what about these? Are these expensive? Well, they hold their money, But when you consider that you didn't have far to fall, you could only get to, I think these were about £5,000 when they came out, sort of 5,4995, something like that. And this one's up, was it 3,4? I put the price, I always get confused, 3,4, 3,7, something like that. I think this is a good buy. And the other reason it's a good buy is because in terms of service costs, you don't have to get the valve check done because they're hydraulic lifters. So it's not a problem on here. But you do need to make sure that you do your oil changes regularly, so you don't get any problems with that all the oil ways are clear, etc. So, you just need to make sure you do regular servicing on here. And then what a shame that they didn't do that system on the 350, because it needed any help to be popular, did it? It already was. But I find something frustrating about having to do valve checks on bikes, because it's just a way of making manufacturers making you spend money, on servicing and stuff. Harley don't do it. It's all hydraulic on Harleys. Don't have to worry about that. I suppose the only plus point on bikes like these, and a lot of the Enfields, that you can do them yourself pretty much. As long as you million instruction videos on YouTube, isn't there, how to do it. But it's not an expensive job, but you do have to leave the bike in there overnight. But this one, you don't have to worry about it. You just carry on riding and just enjoying yourself. And an oil change on here is so quick and easy, And I suppose the other thing with a bike like this is that it's not working very hard, is it? So you're not putting a lot of stress on all the engine components and everything. Very straightforward. Simple engineering from another era, which you could still buy, or you certainly could. But I just think it's lovely. This bike in particular, which is at the Crawley branch, it's got a few little bits on it. It's got these engine bars, lovely engine bars, really strong. They're sort of things that you knock cows out the way, which that's probably what they're for in India, you know, to stop you barging into things, you know, just push things out of the way. But it's just lovely. They did a few colours in this bike, and I'm sure that I saw an RAF version of this with the roundels on it and all that sort of stuff, and that was in the Crawley Superbike Factory, and that went very quickly. That had sort of like 10 miles on it or something crazy like that. So yeah, what a beautiful bike. So what about the handling? Well, it just handles like an old classic motorbike. It feels like when I take my Triumph out, my 62 Tiger out, it's got that feel about it. I'm not going to race around the streets in it, although you probably could on the Tiger. But it has that feeling of sort of sturdiness, but you got to be careful. You know, you haven't got the brakes that you had on the model bike, stuff like that. But it just gives me that feeling. And I think the other thing with the bike like this is that, you know, with the upright position that you've got, you don't feel like you want to go racing around in it. Not that you can, but it just gives you the sense that I'm just going to get to my destination and enjoy the ride. I'm not going to worry that I'm, you know, going to slip, slide, I can't stop quick enough or whatever it is, because you're not going fast enough to worry about that. And that's really important. I think we've forgotten a little bit to enjoy the ride. We've got a bit accustomed to, you know, so much kit on motorbikes that we've got to be using all this, using all that. And a bike like this is just to enjoy the ride at the end of the day. And that's really important. So from a comfort perspective, it's low enough. A lot of people could ride this without any problem at all. And the weight of it, it's about 187 wet. I think with 90% tank fill on it. So that's quite impressive, isn't it, for one of these? I'm sure that's lighter than the, I'll put the weights up, I'm sure that's lighter than the 350. So it just shows you, doesn't it, that you can make bikes like this pretty, you know, lean, if you like. Because there's nothing on it that shouldn't be on it. And that's quite important. I've said this before about bikes where you load them up with kit, and all that happens, they get heavier and heavier and heavier. And that doesn't help anybody, does it really? It makes you feel like you've got a big thing, you know, you've got, you know, a lot of value, if you like. But the problem is that it makes it unwieldy, and you don't want that. You want basic, honest motoring, and that's what this does. You know, yes, you look at the fixtures and the nuts and the bolts, and you think, well, that's, you know, they could take a bit more time, but that costs money, and that's not what we're about here, is it? It's about having, you know, good value, but in a robust, reliable package, and that's what this does. It does it in absolute spades. The other great thing about these sort of Enfields, you can get as much kit as you can from India, so cheap. You know, there's billions of these things in India. And the spares and the replacement parts, you know, tuppence, absolute tuppence. You know, you're not worrying about, you know, getting a bike that there's no dealers in the UK and you can't get the spare parts, you can't get the servicing done and all the rest of it. This you can without any problem whatsoever. But I just think it's a very accessible bike size-wise. You know, I'm about 5'10 and a half, 5'11", getting shorter by the week. And I'm well flat-footed on this, no problem whatsoever. And it doesn't feel unwieldy to walk around with, to move around with my feet. It feels very easy to move. And that's an odd quirk of these 500s, that they're not that heavy, which is really good. So, would I recommend you buy one of these? Too right, I would. I think if you want a nice, easy bike to live with, you know, that's a little bit quirky, but just got a little bit more power that you might want. And it's not power that as in speed, but it's power as in torque. But it just gives you that little bit of pull when you need it. And I think this is a great bike, and I think these will be quite sought after in years to come. They already are now, because when they come up, they seem to go. And the prices, you know, the prices are good. The prices are very stable on these. They seem incredibly stable. And with that, you know, lack of valve clearance jobs you need to do, that's another great thing, isn't it? And this is sort of the last of the, I think, very basic Enfields. Because even the 350 is a bit more technical than this. Now, all this has got ABS and stuff like that, but, you know, you could feel the heritage from its you know, its construction and that unit construction engine and stuff like that. It's so nice to have that. It's just it's a bit more classic than the classic, isn't it? At the end of the day, and that's just a lovely thing. So there you are, the Royal Enfield Classic 500. Do I like it? No, I love it. I think it's an absolute stunner. I think it's stunning. I'm rattling along. I get off, and I can still feel it by the time I got off. Take that as you will. But it's just a great bike, and it's one that I think that's worth seeking out if you can find one. And you know, like this bike, this is 21 plate. You know, this is the very last of the last, really. This is sat in a dealer. I'm waited to go out, even though they stopped production, I think, in 20, or certainly in Portland UK to the 20. This has only got just under 3,000 miles on it. So, yeah, great bike. The Classic 500. Get one while you can. Right, thanks for watching, everybody. And I will see you next time. I'm going to go for a bit more of a play on this because I'm just loving it. On these roads, I'm loving it. Right, see you soon. Take care. And I'll see you in the next episode.